This is my response to how not to speak of God. I'm going with the question, the limits of what we can say about God, i.e. theology. Also tying in another question that has to do with desire for God, is born in God. Kind of just questioning about that. In the first chapter, I can see here just in my notes, I take notes to, in Rollins, your books, you usually talk about God in pretty dynamic ways, but you really don't mention Jesus very often. You talk about really intimate things such as a mother's kiss, but then again, the writing doesn't really mention Jesus. I guess I get swayed because this dialogue just lacks Jesus, and maybe that's because that's what you're speaking about, and because God is one and the same with Christ. So I'm just kind of curious about that. So when you talk about God, you often don't mention Jesus, which I feel should be the central point in Christian thinking as you're critiquing it. Something that I really do like is that you point out a lot that we relate to ourselves, touching about we and us and I. As a church, we're pretty central to our own focus rather than viewing as a whole church body. And so when we go to talk about God, it's hard to say what we feel because we're not really grasping the whole identity as a church body, but rather it's been how can I fix my life? How can Jesus fix me? Rather than the understanding that we already know that he's accomplished everything on the cross. And instead of taking that in, we're more focused on how we can be changed, perfected, and spiritually advanced. And I guess apart from how not to speak of God, in the Orthodox heretic, you often come up with parables that would be pretty radically different from what modern church or traditional church or even Catholic church would have to say about God through parables. And I've seen Christians actually become frightened because they don't quite understand what you're trying to get at, and if you're trying to maybe play the role of God with these parables or not. But to me, I definitely understand that you're trying to depict a story or a lesson through those parables, and trying to show the Christian community that we are a church body, that it shouldn't be shut out to individualism where we all are on our own quest to seek God, that we should seek God together, that we should embrace God with one another. And that is just something that I kind of got from the first chapter, as you speak about God a lot, but you also don't really mention Jesus. So, and then the first chapter is God, rid me of God. And this saying I've heard you say in other times too, about the Creator, and you're trying to, I feel, depict a view of God by not limiting him. And I think that would be another thing that I really strongly agree with in your books, is that you think that as the Christian church is speaking outward, that by any means, by calling God one thing, we're not calling him another thing. And I think that that's great coming from a non-Christian home. I really have grown up to understand God in my own way, and I've seen traditionalism in a way limit God from what he could grow to be, or what he is, or what he can accomplish. We give him these kind of these standards of this is who God is, and this is what I know him as, and this it makes me comfortable when I talk about God to know him as this, rather than allowing God to be God. And so I really like that whole idea of God, rid me of God. Yeah, for sure. And then one other thing that I really like is the desire for God is born in God. On page 53 you write, rather than desire being fulfilled in the presence of God, religious desire is born there. It is sort a true spiritual seeking, can be understood as the ultimate sign that one already has in which one seeks, or rather that one already grasps by which one seeks to grasp. Consequently, a genuine seeking after God is evidence of having found. Of course, much desire that appears to seek after God is nothing of the sort. For instance, to seek God for eternal life is to also seek eternal life. While to seek God for a meaningful existence is to seek a meaningful existence. A true seeking after God results in the experience of God, which falls in love with for no other reason than finding God irresistibly lovable. In this way, the lovers of God are the ones who are most passionately in search of God. And throughout the whole book, when we talk about the limits of what we can say about God and what God is, and just looking at kind of your key points in the book, I really like this section that we even noted in the classroom, because it really gives a Christian inward reflection of, why am I seeking after God? Am I seeking, for church reasons, or for to have praise from men, or to reach this spiritual success ladder that people just keep climbing and going up? And what do I do next? What leadership role do I have to get into? What do I have to do after this? And the theme that I really have liked from following you in your readings, your videos, and other philosophy is that you constantly are speaking truth to, we need to allow God to be God, and we need to just embrace his love. And the reasons we should fall in love with him is in himself, because he is God, not for any other reasons. It shouldn't be for things we want of heaven, which I've seen a huge drive in the church, where it's just all about storing up those treasures in the heavens. And it's even a biblical term that we just take out of context, or seeking after things that we don't necessarily need in order to become spiritually successful. And how can we live our perfect family lives, and what can we do? And it's just really unbiblical. So I find myself really enjoying you seeking to, in words, tell people that there is something more to following God than to going with the norm. And it's hard, because my only question would be, overall from all of this, I guess, how would you, as the author of these books, and a theologian or a philosopher, or whatever you feel comfortable labeling yourself, how would you have a modern day college student live these principles out in a way that are both biblical, responsible, and then also respectful to the other people? And sometimes the gospel isn't respectful, but and we end up hurting people and living out truths, or claiming truths, and people don't understand it, even if it is the right thing to do. Sometimes faith isn't always absolute in the fact that everyone kind of agrees on things, because there's so many unanswered questions. And that, I think that's another reason why you say God rid me of God, because you want him to allow himself to reveal those questions, rather than the church to force answers upon you just because they feel like they have to have the answers for things. So I guess my main question from this video would be, how would you have a college student live these principles, or this way of Christian life out, where we allow God to be God, but we can step forth as the church in order to speak out to others? And I know you go a little bit into that, as far as like what the church should look like in the mission field, or in evangelism and whatnot. But I think that it'd be nice if you could expound a little bit more on that. So again, my name is Blake Wise. This was kind of my little overview of how not to speak of God, and I appreciate your work and excited to read more. Thanks.